Hi, it's Diederik Elderman here. Welcome to the first of your 5-part training series on the veterinary practice profit formula. This series includes my 5 core fundamentals to having an awesome practice that runs independently of you, that nets 20% after all expenses and after a fair wage to you. So the 5 modules, and you need to get these instigated in order, are leadership, team, clients, programs, and finances. Now, programs are standards of care, client support programs, client communication programs, patient care programs, things like that. So each week for the next 5 weeks, I'm going to let you into one of the cores, one of the super important aspects of growing a practice, developing a practice that is going to give you that 20% net profit that you should be after. So today in module 1, it's all about leadership. And the way I look at it, leadership is all about riding in the front seat or stepping up without screwing up. And the image of the German Shepherd, a dog that I've got in the image on the slide there, well, that dog isn't particularly happy about riding in the front seat. And most practice owners that I see and talk to all over the world aren't particularly happy about riding in the front seat either. And unless you ride in the front seat, and unless you're happy to ride there, engage everyone that's riding in the seats behind you, you're not really going to go anywhere. So let me explain that as we move on. So in this training video, we're going to learn about who it is that constrains your practice, whether you're kidding yourself or not, how leadership has changed, the 4 characteristics of the 21st century leader, and when to let go, as well as who your team are watching. So let's get started. I recently had lunch with the CEO of one of the largest group veterinary practices on the planet. And as the CEO ordered his lunch, I tried to fathom what being at the helm of that kind of practice group actually meant. I thought about the challenges, the problems, and the liabilities, not to mention the volatile nature of the veterinary market. My mind was spinning just thinking about everything that was required to keep those practices growing at the pace that they were currently doing so. There were just so many things that could go wrong. Now, as I started to question my friend about what it took and just what he had to do, he actually was calm and relaxed, dismissive even. In his mind, there was only one factor limiting his veterinary practice's growth or his group's growth, and that limiting factor was him. And he said to me, the only constraint of a veterinary practice's success or growth and potential, whether that is a single site practice or 10-site practice, or whether it's even 100 sites, he said, is the CEO's or the owner's ability to lead. He said, I am the constraint. I am the anchor that slows growth down. The market, the opportunity, everything is there. It's up to me to set the pace, clear the obstacles, get the resources, and make the practice faster. And he said, as the owner or CEO, he added, the most important thing that I need to manage is myself. Do that right. If I do that right, then everything else falls into place. That conversation gave me a huge insight into the most important driver that you need to have a successful veterinary practice. And that driver is the owner. It's as simple as this statement. As a leader, I am my only constraint. Now, the number one bottleneck or constraint to the growth of any practice is the leader. Doing what that owner does for a group practice of that size takes some serious leadership. But what he said of his practice and his limitations isn't just true of any veterinary practice, including yours, of course. It's also true for the billion-dollar companies. Just ask Tom Peters, Jack Welch, Bill Gates, Sir Richard Branson, Steve Jobs, etc., etc. The number one bottleneck or constraint to the growth of any organization is the leader. It's true every time. There are no exceptions. Your leadership ability is the major limit to what you can achieve in your practice. Period. So that's what we're here to talk about today. Now, it's all your fault. Is your veterinary practice rocking and rolling? Is the practice growing, new clients coming in the door and existing clients continuing to come back? Are you the practice of choice in your area? If your answer is a resounding yes, then take a moment to congratulate yourself. It looks like you've got it nailed, in fact. Well done. Congratulations. But now consider and reflect on this. While you're to blame, in inverted commas, to blame when things go right, when they go wrong, it's also your fault. It's all your fault. As the leader, you ultimately have 100% responsibility for everything. Good, bad, and indifferent, it's all your fault. When a client gets poor service, when a marketing plan doesn't go to plan, when the profits or the growth is down, etc., you're to blame. Ultimately, it's all you. When a veterinary practice gets into trouble, what do? They fire the practice manager. Or in a group practice, they'll fire the group manager or the CEO if they have one. What about when a sports team starts to lose? They replace the head coach. What about when the country's not doing well? They fire the president. So are you kidding yourself? Are you kidding yourself? Let me give you some statistics here. Knowing that everything hinges on you, there's only one question that should ever be on your mind. How is my leadership? Let me guess. I think that you're going to say to yourself, hey, Diederik, I've got it nailed, frankly. My leadership, it's awfully good. It's pretty damn good, really. It's at least above average, if not even better than that. Now, here's the hard truth, though. Studies consistently show that we think that we're better at things than we really are. Whether we're doctors, pilots, teachers, vets, even, most of us professionals, we think we're better than average. Leaders, too, are no different. In fact, 75% of people in a leadership position think that they're actually in the top 10%. Do the maths. Trust me, we all need to take a closer look at our leadership skills. Now, I want to share a quick story about myself and taking my team to a leadership seminar. This is like 25 years ago. Many moons ago, before I learned my lessons about leadership. Now, on day one, I'll make a long story short, on day one we were asked to complete some exercises that were designed to give us a 360-degree review of each member of the team, including myself. Now, we all anonymously reported on each other's strengths and weaknesses and personality. Now, before I go on, this slide is not the leadership seminar that I went to. This is another leadership seminar. Now, moving on, I reveled in the exercises. I carefully detailed every element of my team's strengths and their weaknesses. I was really good at picking their weaknesses. I was looking forward to both improving the team and hearing, in fact, how good I actually was. And what a grand leader I was too. Now, at the end of the session, the feedback was reassembled for each of the team members so that they could review it in private and that it was anonymous and you couldn't tell who the review came from. Oh boy, I couldn't wait. I worked my way through the responses. But as I started to work my way through the responses, I could feel my face growing hot. I could feel my palms actually beginning to sweat. The way that my team saw me was nothing like how I saw myself. Absolutely no siree. Where I thought I was being organised and transparent, they saw me as being secretive and short-sighted. When I thought I was being inspiring and encouraging, they thought I was being demeaning and a braggart. I then started to look for any glimmer of hope that I was the leader that I knew I was. And that the first few responses were just an aberration, something out of left field. Look, there were some parts that were complimentary, but let's be honest, there was no hiding from the truth. I was not the leader I thought I was. I was flabbergasted, in fact. At first I felt betrayed, and I questioned the results, and I questioned the system, and I questioned the seminar. But look, there was no way around it. This was the truth, and it was a truth that I'd never been willing to face before. Now, it's at moments like these, moments of true adversity, that we're either made or destroyed. It's a little bit like steel, as you can see in the images here, being tempered by the fire. So the steel goes from the heat of the fire to the cold of the water. So the steel either becomes stronger or it cracks, just like you and me. I knew I had two choices. I could discount the feedback as nonsense, and I could continue to believe what I believed. And by doing that, I could preserve my ego. And look, let's be honest, my ego and I had been friends for a long period of time, and I didn't really want to let my ego down. So preserving it, I thought, might have been a good, a good strategy. Or I could take the feedback seriously and make a decision to become a better leader. Now, as ego damaging as it might feel, at least initially anyway, the only real solution that I could see was to stop believing that I was better and simply get better. Leadership's changed. Now, that's the leadership style of the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s and maybe even the 90s. The challenge is that all leadership has changed, evolved, and developed hugely, and we can all get better at it. For hundreds of years, leadership hadn't changed, and it was just like you see in the image there. Businesses were machines for making money, including veterinary business, and the leaders' priorities were to develop structures, set controls, and leverage capital, including human capital, as effectively as possible, all in an outcome to make money. And in effect, people were just parts of the machine and were treated as parts of the machine. This leadership model applied to all business, both large and small, including veterinary. Now, as a leader, your job was to pour your orders into the top of the pyramid machine and watch the results come out from the bottom of the machine. The landscape now is so different, both in terms of who you are leading as well as how you need to lead. That's if you want to get a good outcome. Now let's talk about the millennials. The millennials are those born in the late 80s and the 90s. They are the largest generation to enter the workplace in human history. This generation has a totally different value system from any generation that's gone before. They value self-expression, not compliance. They care about independence, not routine. They're going to have on average 20 to 40 jobs in their lifetime, not just one job. So our older leadership strategies just don't work. And it's not that they just don't work, they actually backfire. If you're challenged in motivating and leading millennials, I'm sorry, I got tongue-tied. If you're challenged by motivating or trying to motivate and trying to lead millennials, you'd better work it out as soon as possible, because millennials will soon represent half of your workforce. And by 2020, they'll hold the majority of the leadership positions. Now, not only is the workforce younger, its gender makeup has changed. there are now more women working than men. And the number of stay-at-home dads has just gone through the roof, and it's now at about 20%. This is a massive shift from the previously male-dominated, top-down, rank and file system and culture. And to make it even more complex, by 2050, minorities are going to make up 55% of the working population. Now, to make things even more complex, for the first time in human history, we're currently seeing 5 generations in the workplace at once. So now you can see that the people that you're going to lead are becoming more and more diverse. Now, when the millennials occupy the majority of the leadership positions, not only will there be 2 generations following them, but their parents and grandparents will be working with them too. So how's that for a leadership challenge for you? You can't be an old school style leader in this new workplace and expect to thrive. So now let's talk about the 21st century leader. Leader, the word leader used to be synonymous with boss or manager, but not anymore. A boss leads by authority, fear, and command. You'll do it because I said so. I'm the boss. That's a disaster in the modern workplace. Everyone hates bosses, so don't be a boss. And managers try to incentivize with brass rings, gift cards, and the chance to, in inverted commas, ring the bell. If you do what I say, I'll give you this. Managers are weenies. Don't be a manager. So what should in fact you be? The style of modern leadership that works is not the style that you saw your father or his peers use. Sadly, though, that's the only leadership style that most of us know because we've been seeing it so often. Leadership to us is what we saw while we were growing up, and that's what we saw while we were growing up, but it no longer works. But we haven't been exposed to anything else, so we don't know what else to do. So what do? Well, it's easy. Well, it's simple. Simple isn't always easy, but it is simple. So you simply change and adapt and become a 21st century leader. 21st century leaders aren't bosses. They're not managers either. They're not relics from a bygone era. They're leaders because they understand and embody the 4 things that characterize and set all great leaders apart. The first thing is that leaders set the pace. Do you want to know a secret? People don't go as fast as they can. They don't work as hard as they can either. They aren't as disciplined as they could be, and they aren't as positive-minded or as enthusiastic as they can be. They're only as fast and as disciplined and as positive as you are. As the leader, you set the tone, you set the standards, and you set the pace. It doesn't matter who, in fact, you're leading. They will only be as disciplined, driven, focused, and consistent as the person leading them. The speed, quality, and culture of the people you lead, the pack in inverted commas, are determined by the leader. This means that the most important and typically the most ignored principle of leadership is to lead by example. Now, here's how to set a good example. As I said, people don't go as fast as they can. They only go as fast as the leader goes. You set the pace. Let's talk about an example of leading from the front. In 1944, the Allied generals gathered to discuss their battle plans for the D-Day invasion of Normandy. After listening to how each general was going to send his soldiers into battle, an angry Dwight D. Eisenhower, the supreme Allied commander, slammed his fist down on the table, stood up, and placed a piece of string in the middle of the table in front of all the generals. "Gentlemen," he said, "do you see this string? This string is like your army. Push it from behind and it doubles up on itself. And it goes nowhere. You get nowhere. to drive it forward, you have to pull it from the front, and then it'll follow you in perfect order. So if you want your practice to advance, you just can't give a speech and say, go. You need to say, follow me, and make your action your instruction. So to lead, you only need to say, follow me. Before you ask someone to do anything, I've got another example for you. And this example is one of Mahatma Gandhi. And it's the story of the little boy in the sweets. And you can look it up on Google. It's a really brilliant example. And it's an invaluable lesson on leadership. A woman came to see Gandhi, and she waited in line for more than half a day with her son at her side in order to have an audience with him. When at last it was her turn to speak to him, the woman said, Mahatma, please tell my son he must stop eating sweets. It's ruining his health, it's ruining his teeth. It affects his mood. Every time he has sweets, I see the change in him, and there's nothing I can do to stop him eating more and more sweets. He is a really good boy, but when it comes to sweets, he becomes a liar, a thief, and a cheat, and I'm afraid it's going to ruin his life. Please, Mahatma, tell him to stop. Gandhi looked at the boy for a long moment as the boy cowered there, trying to hide in his mother's sari. And finally Gandhi broke his silence and said, come back to me in 2 weeks. The woman was confused, a little bit disappointed, and in fact angry that Gandhi couldn't simply tell her son to stop eating sugar. But doing as the great Gandhi said, the mother took her son and she left. 2 weeks later, the woman returned to see Gandhi again with the child, and once again she waited in line for hours before it was finally her turn to see the master. Mahatma, the mother said, we have returned. We came a few weeks ago to ask you for help with this boy and his sweet eating habit, and you asked us to come back in 2 weeks, and we're here. Yes, of course I remember, said Mahatma. Come here, child, he said. He motioned the boy forward. The boy, at the urging and the prodding of his mother, disentangled himself from her sari and stepped up to Gandhi, who reached out, put his hands on the boy's shoulders and pulled him closer. He looked the boy squarely in the eye and said firmly, don't eat sweets. And then he released him. That's it, said the mother. That's all you're going to say? She was flabbergasted. She was annoyed. Why didn't you just tell him that 2 weeks ago? And Gandhi said, because 2 weeks ago I was still eating sweets myself. I couldn't ask him to stop eating sweets as long as I had not stopped either. So the moral of the story is ask only for others to do what you have done yourself first. If you really want to have leadership influence, you have no choice but, as Gandhi said, to be the change that you want to see in others. Leadership in the 21st century is less about the words that come out of your mouth and more about the actions that you take. Is there a behavior that is rotting the teeth of your practice and ruining your practice's health? If so, you'll need to be the first one to throw those sweets away. Just want to give you another story about monkey see and monkey do. Thousands of years ago, when we were still living in caves and carrying around, cattle bones as clubs, a newborn needed to be accepted by the tribe, or that newborn was in fact left behind to die. Over time, nature selected the newborns, the ones who could mirror those around them, and by doing that to gain acceptance. And we developed what neuroscientists call mirror neurons. Now you can see mirror neurons in action when you take a picture of someone smiling or you look at someone smiling and you automatically start to smile as well. Your mirror neurons were the cause of that. These mirror neurons are always working below the level of your consciousness. It's why people will eventually model and match your behavior, or you in fact model and match their behavior. Especially and particularly the behavior of the one that is deemed to be the leader. This mirroring phenomenon occurs in every business. If the leaders of one veterinary practice dress professionally and wear smart clothes to work, then the entire team will do the same thing. However, in another practice, the leaders might wear ripped designer jeans, t-shirts and dog tags. And guess what? The whole team will look like them. You're always being watched. Studies show that each member of your team is looking at you, the leader, every 45 seconds to see exactly what you're doing it and how you're doing it. Then they mimic you and copy. You need to understand who you are, how you show up. You need to understand that who you are and how you show up and how you act, how you live and how you represent yourself is your greatest source of influence on how your team members do their jobs, on how your team members treat your clients, and how your people will, without even knowing it, mirror your lead. Your people don't listen to you as such, but they do watch you. They're always watching you. So you need to be the example. A reaction, comment and reaction that you put out there is training your team. They're simply reflecting what you project. And if you want to change the reflection, you have to change the projection. You have to lead by example. Number 2, leaders do what's unpopular. Now, I'm sure you've heard this statement again and again. Gee, it must be nice to be in charge. How many times have you heard that? How many times have you actually said that when you weren't in charge and you wish you were in charge? Now you are in charge. Let's be honest. I bet there are many times that you say to yourself, I wish I wasn't in charge. Leadership isn't always that, in inverted commas, nice. It's not that easy. It's not that fun. It's hard work. And not just hard in the terms of long, demanding hours, although the hours are long and demanding, but it's also emotionally hard. Give you another example. In 2008, July 2008, the CEO of Starbucks, Howard Schultz, agonized over the decision to lay off thousands of employees and close 600 stores, 70% of which had only been built and opened in the last 2 to 3 years. He calls it the most painful day in his professional life. The decision to close that many stores was tough, he said, but it wasn't about the stores, it was about the people. While he knew it would make him very unpopular to thousands of people, especially to those people whose lives would immediately change based on his decision, he also knew that it was the right decision and the one he had to make to save Starbucks, to save its future, and to save all the other people working for Starbucks. He said, I was faced with the burden and the responsibility of saving the business. In order to preserve and ultimately to enhance the business, I had to make emotional and highly charged, unpopular decisions that in the short term were really going to fracture the lives of people. Now, you might need to step in and terminate people's jobs as well, or to shut down various, in inverted commas, pet care activities. You know, a little bit like Steve Jobs did when he returned to lead a nearly bankrupt Apple in 1997. If your name badge is going to say leader, you're going to be called on to ruffle feathers, ride roughshod over poor performance, fire nice people, kill sacred cows, terminate pet projects, and veto the democratic vote. All of this is going to make you extremely unpopular. But the aim of the leader is not to be liked. The aim of the leader is to lead, to do the right thing and to do it many times. And the right thing is not necessarily the popular thing. When people are calling you out and calling you names, they're really just calling you a leader. Point 3, leaders grow others. It is the responsibility of the leader to draw out talent, to draw out drive, and to draw out capability of the people on their team. Most people are operating in a fraction of what they're potentially capable of. And as the leader, you will need to find the unique seeds of greatness that's buried within each member of your team. You need to remove the weeds, the fears, the inhibitions, the uncertainties in your team. You need to water and fertilize, in other words, invest in your team members' personal growth. And you need to provide the sunshine, in other words, your positive attitude, your belief in them, and your example to them. So you need to provide the sunshine which will then transform that miraculous seed within each of your team members into a bountiful harvest of results and productivity. The leader's responsibility is to draw out the talent, the drive, and the capability of the people on your team. Your job as a leader is to grow your people. Look, it's easy to be distracted by the job of growing your practice, by the job of growing your business. But never forget, your job as a leader is to grow your people. And it starts with growing yourself. When you grow yourself, you'll grow your people. And when your people grow, your practice will grow. It's all a natural progression, and it all starts at the top with you. Leaders let others lead. A few years ago, when I was still in full-time practice, I had the chance to ask a billionaire friend, mentor of mine, Damien. I had a chance to ask him how he achieved his proverbial billionaire status. His answer was only 3 words long, and his answer shocked me. His answer was, be a quitter. Did you just say, huh? Because that's certainly what I said. I said to Damien, huh? So he said to me, he said, whatever you're doing in your practice right now, he said, your goal is to find a way to quit it. You need to stop doing almost everything you do at work. Only continue to do what no one else can do. And then train other people to do those tasks as well. And he went on to explain, once the founder, the practice owner, has the vision of the practice, the key to achieving that vision is to delegate as much as possible and as fast as possible. Delegation, in fact, is a form of quitting. Even if you are the most well-rounded and most capable practice owner of all time, you're still better off delegating functions to, in inverted commas, specialists within your practice. And if they are not specialists yet at various tasks, then you need to train them until they are specialists. You need to delegate as much as possible until you actually quit yourself out of your job. This allows you to multiply the size of your practice through large numbers of people rather than by trying to do everything yourself. The process of quitting is really all about giving up every part of your job as fast as you can, he said. All the parts, that is, except the really critical part of being the visionary leader. I mumbled under my breath, bloody hell, easier said than done. Damien chuckled. Look, he said, when you first start your practice, you're likely going to have to do everything. Answer the phone, wash the floors, clean the kennels, prep the patients for surgery, pay the wages, look after the website, do the OTC sales, do the customer service, doing the counting, even taking out the trash. I nodded my head. And then he said, your goal is to get enough clients and patients coming in through the front door so that you can quit taking out the trash and you can hire someone else to take it out. Then he said your job is to get even more clients and patients going, and then quit doing the accounting. Hire someone else with with really good abilities, aka a specialist, to do something else. Then keep getting even more clients and more patients and more veterinary work going, and quit doing something else that you can delegate. And then you want to keep getting more patients and clients going, and you want to go from doing everything in your practice to doing nothing except leading. And you only get there by quitting everything as fast as you can. He concluded, you want to turn labor into leadership. As the founder and the business owner, as the leader, you shouldn't be doing anything except the leading. You can't be a great leader if you spend your time doing tasks that aren't actually leadership tasks. And he said, the reason most practice owners never make it, in inverted commas, is because they're doing exactly the opposite of what we've just gone through then. These practice owners don't make it because they take on more and more and more tasks for which they're not skilled and for which they're not suited. When you're not especially good at something, your results are diminished. And when you're doing more and more and more tasks, you're simultaneously diminishing your ability to do what a real specialty you need to become and need to be good in. And that specialty is leadership. You can't lead if you're designing brochures and websites. You can't lead if you're doing the accounting, MyOb, QuickBooks, Xero, and making payroll. You can't lead if you're managing the day-to-day running of the practice. You can't be a great leader if you're doing things that aren't actually leadership things. Get out of the way. Let others take the lead on those roles. You're the head coach. You're not the player. Imagine if the head coach ran onto the field to throw a pass, kick the goal, or make the tackle. They'd throw him out of the stadium. And veterinary practice owners are doing that all the time. Become a quitter. Do your real job, leadership, and let your team do their job. Now, you need to know when to let go. Sometimes there comes a point with a team member, even after all of the coaching, mentoring, training, development, and growing, after all of the caring, after all of the dreaming and the delegating, when there's really nothing else that can be done with that employee except to let them go. It's just part of the job. It's part of the leader's job. And employees all across the world are getting fired every minute, but it doesn't make it any easier on the leader who has to do it. But when the day comes that you're facing this crossroad, I really want you to consider this quote from Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix. He points out a subtle but a profound distinction that has really helped me in those difficult moments. He says, we're a team, not a family. It is the coach's job at every level to hire, develop, and to cut smartly so that we have stars in every possible position. Why a team and not a family? Well, a family culture sets up a mindset of entitlement and a mindset of privilege. After all, you can't fire your brother-in-law and get on your mother's case for not pulling a weight, can you? A pro or a professional sports team culture elicits an entirely different attitude. You're either performing at the level that the team needs or you get cut or traded. It's nothing personal. If it's going to win, then that team needs to be able to rely on the best person and have the best person in every position. And the leader's job, the coach's job, your job is to recruit, develop, and trade up so that you have the best player in every position on your team. Leadership is a gift, so let's talk about the gift of your leadership. Every vetpreneur who leads their team and who leads their practice also feels the weight of responsibility for those who follow him or her. Day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, you are significantly influencing people's lives, often in ways that you don't even realize. People will look to you, they'll emulate you. Your practice will provide them with challenges, opportunities to grow, a livelihood, and the chance to do something that matters, the chance to make a difference. It's an awesome responsibility. You need to take it seriously. You need to give yourself the time. You need to make the time to give yourself the skills that you require and that you need. With that responsibility, though, there comes a huge opportunity, one that brings with it massive rewards. Now, I'm not talking about, success and bank deposits. Hey, they're great, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fulfillment that you are going to get from knowing that you've left an indelible imprint of making a truly positive difference in someone else's life. It's a truly rewarding experience, and it's a great privilege, one that you should accept with honor and with dignity. Everyone in your organization is learning how to think, they're learning how to act, and they're learning how to react from you. So you need to learn and you need to lead by example. Those people sitting in the chairs behind you on your practice bus are watching you. They're taking their cues at work, and they're taking their cues from at home, actually, from you. They're learning how to think and act and react based on what you do and on how you behave. You're riding in the front seat of your practice bus. So put a smile on your face and show your team true leadership. So now let's get to the action steps for this module, this video. First of all, decide whether you want to be the leader of your practice or whether you don't want to be the leader. If you don't want to be the leader, then appoint someone else. Make the time to learn leadership skills and to do leadership training. Make the time to help others on your team to develop, as we've talked about during this video. And then learn to let go, learn how to delegate, and learn how to trust. And lastly, above all, and most importantly, learn how to enjoy the ride. Because if you don't, it's going to be awfully scary and awfully disconcerting. And no matter how rough the ride gets, it's still a really enjoyable ride. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to catching up with you in our next module, which is all about team.